and good morning everyone, and welcome to today's Zoo to You. My name is Katie and I'm an educator here at the Stone Zoo, and today's Zoo to You is brought to you by MIFA on behalf of the U Fund College Investing Plan. And today we are celebrating Wolf Wednesday with our Mexican gray wolves. So we're going to chat a little bit about them and see if we can kind of see if they'll come a little bit closer to us. So if you have any questions about the wolves throughout our chat, feel free to type them in the comment section and we will do our very best to answer them for you. So we have 6 Mexican gray wolves here at Stone Zoo, and they are all brothers, and they are all named after female conservationists. And these boys are around 3 years old, and they came to Stone Zoo from the Wolf Conservation Center in New York. And while you're taking a look at their exhibit right now, you might notice that there are some things in there that might look a little out of place. You might see some little blobs, and that is because our wolves are carnivores. And one thing that we like to do for them here at the zoo is to introduce as many novel foods, so new and different foods for them as possible. And one of those novel food items can be small rodents. They can also get chicks, mice, ground meat, and something that we call exotic canine chow. It's really similar to dog or cat kibble you might have at home, but it is specially formulated for canine species that are not domestic. So they are getting some frozen and thawed out rodents today as part of their novel foods. And we like to introduce these food items for them at different times of the day. They get fed different things, and this keeps their senses really sharp. That's really important for all of our animals at the zoo, but especially our Mexican gray wolves. And that is because they are an active part of an SSP, which is a species survival plan. And the Mexican gray wolf species survival plan is managed by U.S. Fish and Wildlife. U.S. Fish and Wildlife works in conjunction with 55 facilities here in the United States and Mexico that are housing Mexican gray wolves. This is really important because not too long ago in the 70s and 80s, Mexican gray wolves were very close to extinction. Way back, if we kind of get in our time machine and travel through history, Mexican gray wolves had a really prolific population. They were really abundant, and in the 1600s their population started to decline as settlers from Europe came to the United States, into areas of Mexico, and predators like wolves are a threat to livestock. So in 1630 we saw the first documented gray wolf bounty in the United States, and after that bounties for wolves and other predators were really popular. So you could actually get money or a reward for bringing in these dead predators. And that had a really cascading effect on ecosystems, and we saw wolf populations really start to plummet. In 1976, Mexican gray wolves were one of the first species to be added to the endangered species list. And what's really interesting is that, their population is in the United States and Mexico, so the U.S. and Mexican government still work together to help manage this species. So in 1977 through 1980, the last remaining Mexican gray wolves, it was just a handful of wolves. They were actually brought under human care, and their species survival plan was created. And in 1982, that's when the United States joined forces with Mexico to help save this species. In 1998, it was a really big year for Mexican gray wolves because that's when the first 11 wolves were introduced into the Apache National Forest in Arizona. And that year, for the first time in 50 years, there were wolf pups born in the wild. And that's actually the same year that Zoo New England, our zoo right here, joined the Mexican gray wolf species survival plan. And as we kind of go through, lots of different facilities participating in reintroduction programs for this species. In 2014, they estimated that there were around 100 wolves in the wild. So that's really huge. We've made a jump from 11 to 100 in just a few years. And in 2015, U.S. Fish and Wildlife made some revisions to that species survival plan, and they started introducing gray wolves to areas that were outside of their original recovery plan. And that's allowing them to expand their range and hopefully expand their population as well. And as of 2020, there have been some really big milestones for Mexican gray wolves. Right now, half of all of the Mexican gray wolves in the wild are now radio collared, so we can track their movements, we can see if they're expanding into other areas, we can check on their health. And 2020 was the 5th year of population growth, which is a really big deal considering all of the obstacles that large predators face. And there are now an estimated 186 Mexican gray wolves in the wild. So they are still a critically endangered species. However, their population is slowly growing, which is really, really exciting. That's what we want to see. So having Mexican gray wolves here at our zoo, even though we only have males right now, one day there could be females here and we can be participating in that program as well. And that's one of the reasons why our zookeeping staff are very hands-off with this species. A lot of other animals at the zoo will receive training, trained for things like opening their mouths or, trusting zookeepers through a protected barrier, things like that. Our Mexican gray wolves are not trained for any of these behaviors, and that's because we are trying to keep as many of those natural instincts as sharp as possible, and we don't want them getting used to humans. And I'll see if there's any questions that have come in. It looks like, here's a question. Are there any Mexican gray wolves wild in New England? There are not any Mexican gray wolves wild up in New England. A long time ago, there used to be gray wolves, so larger than the Mexican gray wolf subspecies in New England, but they have not been seen for a very long time. So we'll see if we can see any more of our wolves coming down for their little snack today. Let's give it another moment if any questions come through. But I can tell you one of my favorite things about the Mexican gray wolves that we have right now is this pack is really curious about people. If you have been to Stone Zoo before, especially in the last few years, you might have noticed that the last pack of wolves we had were a little bit more shy. They were very, very old. It was also a pack of brothers, and they were a little bit more timid to come down and really use each area of their exhibit. And right now, these boys are very curious. They're very young, so you'll oftentimes see them kind of roaming around their exhibit. If you come to the zoo, my suggestions for the best times to see them active are on cool days just like today, and right when we open at 9 o'clock, or right as we're getting ready to close the zoo this time of year around 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I see we've had some other questions. Do they come out more at night than during the day? They might. I have never been up here at night, so I am not sure. That's a really good question. I can tell you that dawn and dusk are really good times to see them active. And I see we had another question. What is their average life expectancy? In human care at zoos, their average lifespan is around 15 years old. Our last pack, as I was mentioning, they were very old. Our last wolf passed away at 17, so he was past average lifespan, which is really, really old for a wolf. And let's see, any baby animals at the zoo? Not right now. Our newest arrival is Taco the sloth, and she was born at the end of July. So she's still very little, but we have not had any new arrivals since Taco was born. All right, well, we are just about out of time. I want to thank you all so much for joining us this morning for our very chilly Zoo to You. Today's Zoo to You is brought to you by MIFA on behalf of the UFund College Investing Plan. Thank you for watching. Bye.